You think by giving her attention, she'll stay. But it's the opposite. The more you chase, the more she slips through your fingers. The more available you are, the less she sees you. And the moment you pull away, she starts to feel something she can't control. She's not texting back because she's busy. She's not quiet because she forgot you. She's doing it because she can. Because deep down, she believes you'll keep showing up. And most men do. They wait. They beg. They explain. And they lose. But the man who walks away, the one who says nothing, that man haunts her. Not for a moment, but for days, sometimes weeks, because silence speaks louder than attention ever could. She checks her phone. No message. She scrolls through stories, wondering if you watched. Nothing. She replays your last conversation, dissecting every word. And in that space, her mind starts working against her. Was I not enough? Did he meet someone better? Why isn't he chasing? You've felt the opposite, haven't you? That gut-twisting anxiety when someone you wanted started pulling back. The silence, the overthinking, the need to prove your worth. Now imagine that same emotional fire, but she's the one burning in it. And all you did was say nothing. There's a strange power in indifference. Not fake silence, not manipulation, but the kind of silence that comes from a man who doesn't need her. A man who has options, who has purpose, who is whole without her validation. Most men never understand why ignoring her flips the dynamic. Why the moment you pull away, she starts leaning in. Why your absence becomes the very thing she can't ignore. But if you know what you're doing, if you understand the psychology behind her reactions, then your silence won't push her away. It will pull her in, deeper than attention ever could. Because once she feels the weight of your absence, she'll start chasing the man she thought she could replace. 1. Ignoring her breaks. The control she thinks she has. She doesn't chase you because she wants you. She chases you when she thinks she's losing control of you. Most men don't understand this. They think attention is currency. That being consistent, present, available will make her feel secure and loved. But here's the brutal truth. When a woman believes she has control over you, she stops valuing you. Picture this. You've been texting her daily. Good morning, good night, asking how her day went, trying to be thoughtful, responsive, emotionally available, and for a while, she responds. Short replies, maybe even a dry laugh here and there. But something's off. You feel the shift. She's no longer engaged. She doesn't initiate. And when she does reply, it feels like a formality, not desire. You keep giving more, thinking it'll fix the distance, but it only widens it, because she already knows you'll be there. She knows where you are, how you feel, what you'll do. She has control, and the human brain is wired to devalue what it controls effortlessly. Have you ever felt powerless in that dynamic? That sinking realization that the more you give, the less you get? That no matter how much effort you put in, she becomes more distant, not closer? Now watch what happens the moment you stop, the moment you go silent, the moment she doesn't hear from you. You don't reply within minutes. You don't view her story. You stop checking in. At first she thinks it's nothing. Maybe you're just busy. But then a day passes, then 2, and suddenly, the power she thought she had begins to crack. She reopens your last message. She checks your profile. She wonders what happened, because something inside her is no longer in control. That loss of control activates something primal, uncertainty. And in that uncertainty, desire is reborn. She can't fully explain it, but she feels the shift. She no longer owns your attention, and now she needs it again. Not for love, not for comfort, but to restore her dominance. This is where most men fail. They break silence too soon. They rush back in when she finally reaches out, because they're chasing reassurance. But the truth is, the power of ignoring her isn't about games. It's about breaking the pattern she's used to. The pattern where she leads, and you follow. Where she speaks, and you jump. When you stop playing your role in her script, she starts chasing the plot. And that's when attraction comes alive. Not because of who you pretend to be, but because of who you've become. A man she can't fully read. A man she can't fully control. A man who is no longer responding to her cues, because he's writing his own. 2. Silence creates a psychological vacuum that demands her attention. Your silence isn't empty. It's a mirror. And when she looks into it, she sees everything she tried to ignore. Most men think silence means defeat. That if you're not speaking, not texting, not showing up, you've lost her. But here's the truth. A woman doesn't fear your anger. She fears your indifference. Think about the last time you stopped replying. Not as a tactic, but because something inside you said, enough. You didn't block her. You didn't post stories to provoke her. You just vanished. And for the first time, she didn't know where she stood. She didn't know if she still mattered. And that uncertainty started to eat at her. She scrolled back to your old messages. She read the way you used to talk to her. She noticed how your energy used to feel warm, available, consistent. Now, nothing. Not even a reaction. Have you ever felt that hunger to be acknowledged and been met with silence? It's maddening. It makes you question your own worth, your impact, your place in someone else's world. And that's exactly what your silence does to her. Not out of cruelty, but consequence. There's a reason silence is powerful. The human brain hates open loops. When someone leaves mid-conversation, when a movie ends on a cliffhanger, when a door closes without explanation, we obsess. We replay the moment. We imagine alternate endings. We crave resolution. That's what your silence becomes. A psychological vacuum. And the more emotionally involved she was, the louder that vacuum echoes. Because your silence doesn't just reflect her actions, it magnifies them. It forces her to sit with her choices, to think about the moment she withdrew, the message she ignored, the signal she misread. And now she's stuck wondering, why did he stop? Did I go too far? Is he over me? What used to feel like control now feels like chaos. And in that chaos, she tries to restore order. That's when the chase begins. Not because she loves you, but because she's trying to close the loop. She wants her emotional balance back, and the only way to get it is through you. That's the power of intentional absence. Not passive, not petty, but the kind of silence that comes from a man who knows his worth. A man who doesn't explain himself to be understood. A man who lets his absence do what words can't. Have you ever wondered why she reached out after you stopped trying? Why she became more curious when you became more distant? It wasn't luck. It was the echo of your silence forcing her to finally hear what she couldn't before. And now, that silence has her full attention. 3. Distance triggers. Her fear of losing value in your eyes. She doesn't chase you because she misses you. She chases you because your silence makes her question her worth. Most men think women only react when they're emotionally attached. But what truly triggers her is the moment she suspects she's no longer valued in your eyes. Because when a woman feels devalued, she becomes obsessed with reclaiming her position. Picture this. You used to respond instantly. You used to be the one reaching out, checking in, initiating. You made plans. You made time. You made her feel like she was the center of your world, and she got used to it. Even if she didn't show it, she assumed you'd always be available, until you weren't. You didn't say anything. You just created distance, no drama, no confrontation, just space. And now she's starting to wonder. What changed? She starts scrolling through old messages. She replays how she acted. She wonders if she said something wrong. But more than that, she begins to question, does he still see me the same way? And that question doesn't just sting, it lingers. Because women aren't afraid of being ignored. They're afraid of becoming forgettable. Have you ever been in a room with someone you once craved, and now they treat you like a stranger? That feeling of being invisible, irrelevant, discarded. That's what you've now triggered in her. Not because you wanted revenge, but because you've stopped placing her above yourself. The deeper psychology here is tied to status and emotional hierarchy. Attraction isn't just about feelings, it's about position. When she knows she's at the top of your attention, she feels secure, but not stimulated. When she suspects she's slipping, when her influence over you is weakening, insecurity hits. And in that insecurity, she starts working to regain ground. She wants to see herself through your eyes again. She wants proof that she still matters. And when you don't give it freely, she starts seeking it. She puts more thought into what she says. She checks to see if you viewed her story. She lingers on your profile longer than she should. Because now, your approval, not your attention, has become the thing she craves. That's why emotional distance works. It subtly but powerfully signals, you no longer hold the same position in my world. And in her world, that's a crisis. Because once she feels her value in your eyes is slipping, she'll do whatever it takes to restore it. Have you ever noticed her become warmer, more affectionate, more curious, after you stopped caring so much? It's not coincidence. It's biology. It's ego. It's emotional equilibrium being disrupted, and her instinct to chase what restores it. So when you step back, not out of spite, but out of self-respect, you stop being her comfort zone and start being her emotional mirror. One that makes her wonder if she still holds the place she thought was guaranteed. 4. Indifference forces her to compete for relevance. A woman doesn't fear rejection. She fears being replaced. The second she senses your world no longer revolves around her, something primal gets activated. Competition mode. Because the moment you stop proving she matters, she starts working to matter again. You've seen it. You stop texting first. You don't compliment her outfit. You stop reacting to her stories. You're still polite, still present, but no longer invested. And suddenly, she starts trying harder. She gets more active online. She posts thirst traps, but aimed vaguely. She reaches out, maybe with a, "Hey, just checking in." Not because she's kind, because she's calculating. She's trying to see if she still holds influence in your world. Have you ever felt invisible in someone's eyes and suddenly felt the need to prove yourself again? To remind them of what they once wanted? That's exactly what your indifference creates. It's not cruelty, it's gravity. And in her world, it's a shift in the emotional balance of power. Attraction isn't about access, it's about value. And when something becomes too accessible, it stops being valuable. But the moment you introduce indifference, real, grounded, masculine detachment, you shift the dynamic. You force her to question her place, to wonder whether she still holds the power she once thought was guaranteed. This isn't about manipulation. It's about boundaries. You're no longer rewarding her for the bare minimum. You're no longer chasing her approval or trying to keep her attention warm. You've stepped back. You've stopped giving. And now she's faced with a truth she can't ignore. If she wants your energy, she has to earn it. Here's the psychology. Women are hardwired to assess status, not just social status, emotional status. They want to know, do I still matter to him more than other women? When she senses she's being treated just like everyone else, no special treatment, no special access, it triggers discomfort. Because now she has to compete, not with other women, with your indifference, with your purpose, with your peace. And that's when her behavior changes. She becomes more responsive, more curious, more invested, because she feels the shift, and she knows she's no longer at the center. Have you noticed she's most affectionate when you start focusing on yourself again? When you start acting like she's not the priority, suddenly she wants to be one. Because your indifference tells her what words never could. You are not the source of my validation. And when a woman feels like she's not enough to distract you from your path, she'll do everything she can to step into it. 5. Mystery replaces predictability. And that's addictive. The more she knows your next move, the less she feels anything. Predictability breeds comfort, and comfort, without challenge, kills desire. When you're always there, when your replies are instant, your emotions obvious, your patterns unchanging, you become easy to understand. And once she understands you completely, she stops wondering. And when she stops wondering, she stops feeling. Now imagine this. You used to message her every night. Funny memes, quick check-ins, random thoughts just to stay on her mind, and she responded. Sometimes, other times, she left you on read. But now, you've pulled back. No message tonight, no story view, no reminder that you're still orbiting her world. She waits, then she checks. Nothing. Now she's scrolling through your profile, wondering if you're online. Now she's watching your silence, trying to decode it. Now you're not predictable, you're a puzzle. And that shift, from availability to mystery, triggers something powerful. Have you ever been haunted by someone simply because you couldn't figure them out? Not because they were loud or dramatic, but because their silence made you question everything? Mystery is addictive, because the brain craves resolution. And when she can't predict you, she starts investing emotionally just to decode you. Every post you don't like, every story you don't reply to, every time you disappear instead of chasing, it feeds the tension. And tension is the oxygen of attraction. The deeper layer here is control. When she knows how you feel, where you stand, how you'll react, she has control. But when you're silent, when your energy is calm, detached, self-contained, she feels out of control. And that loss of control creates emotional urgency. Suddenly, she has questions. Is he losing interest? Is he seeing someone else? Did I mess up? And those questions keep her emotionally invested. Not because you're playing games, but because you've stopped feeding her certainty. The masculine man doesn't seek to be mysterious. He just is. Because his attention is earned. His world is full. His energy is guarded. He's not broadcasting his emotions just to feel seen. He's grounded in silence. And that silence creates curiosity. And curiosity, in a woman's mind, always leads to chase. Because when she doesn't know what page she's on, she'll keep flipping through the book to figure it out. Have you noticed that the less you explain, the more she pays attention? That the moment you stop trying to prove your value is the moment she starts searching for it? That's not luck. That's the power of mystery. And it only exists when your silence becomes more interesting than your presence. 6. It makes her question her own worth and appeal. The moment you stop responding, she stops feeling beautiful. That's what no one tells you. Ignoring her doesn't just remove attention, It shatters the image she holds of herself, because whether she admits it or not, your reaction confirms her value. When you used to text her, "You looked amazing tonight," when you'd light up every time she sent a photo, when your tone shifted just because she walked into the room, she felt powerful. She felt seen. And that feeling wasn't just about attraction. It was about validation. Now picture this. She posts a photo she knows would have caught your attention. Maybe it's a subtle selfie or a carefully chosen quote with just enough bite to make you react. She waits. Nothing. No like, no message, no comment, just silence. She refreshes. Still nothing. And now a question creeps in. Did I lose my effect on him? That's when the spiral begins. She goes from wondering where you are to wondering what happened to her. And that shift is everything. Have you ever started questioning your own worth? Not because of what someone said, but because of what they didn't? That silent absence, that lack of reaction, speaks louder than any rejection, because it makes you look inward. And for a woman, especially one used to being desired, that void cuts deep. Here's what's really happening beneath the surface. You've become a mirror, and when she looks into it and sees no reflection, she starts asking why. Was she not pretty enough? Did she lose your interest? Is there someone better now? And each question chips away at the image she's built of herself. Because up until now, she was in control. She could post, smile, flirt, and get a reaction. But now, the silence makes her doubt her own appeal. Psychologically, this is known as the collapse of perceived value reinforcement. When the source of validation disappears, it creates a psychological hunger to restore that feeling. And that hunger becomes a chase, not because of love, but because her identity is under threat. Women don't chase men who give them everything. They chase the men whose attention makes them feel valuable again. And when that value is suddenly removed, it's not just curiosity, it's survival. It's emotional protection. It's a desperate need to regain what was lost, even if it was never real. Have you ever watched her try harder when you gave less? Not because you were playing games, but because your silence held a mirror to her ego, and it cracked. That's the strange power of ignoring her. You stop being the man who validates her, and you become the man who makes her question if she ever truly had you. 7. It forces her to face the emotional investment she tried to hide. She never told you how much she cared, until your silence made her feel it. That's the paradox. She acted cold. She kept things light. She played it cool. But now you've gone quiet, and suddenly she's feeling everything she tried to avoid. At first, ignoring her doesn't seem like a big deal. She shrugs it off. She tells herself, "You're just like the others, temporary, replaceable, forgettable." But something's different this time. Because when you vanished, you didn't leave chaos, you left peace. And peace is terrifying when you expected a reaction. Now picture this. She's lying in bed, phone in hand. It's midnight. She opens your chat. No messages, no missed calls, no typing bubble. She checks your status. Nothing. And then it hits her. You've stopped needing her. And in that stillness, the emotions she buried start rising. Every moment she dismissed, every laugh, every compliment, every subtle sign that she mattered. It all comes crashing back. Have you ever realized how much someone meant to you, only after they stopped showing up? Not because of what they said, but because of the silence they left behind. That's the moment when denial collapses. And that's exactly what your absence does to her. Emotionally, she invested more than she admitted, even to herself. She wanted to stay in control, to protect herself, to win the unspoken game of who cares less. But your indifference broke the game. You didn't chase. You didn't explain. You didn't try to make her feel better. And now she's alone with the truth. You mattered more than she thought, or maybe more than she wanted to admit. The psychology behind this runs deep. People suppress feelings to avoid vulnerability, to feel strong, to avoid being seen as the one who cares more. But when you disappear, that emotional wall cracks, because the mind hates unfinished stories, and her feelings, the ones she buried, start clawing their way to the surface. This is where the chase begins. Not out of strategy, not out of ego, but because she needs relief. She needs to know those feelings weren't one-sided. She needs proof that you still feel something too, because if you don't, she has to live with the weight of knowing she lost something real and never fought for it. Have you ever seen her suddenly open up after you stopped giving her attention? Suddenly vulnerable, suddenly honest, suddenly emotional. That's not coincidence. That's the emotional bill coming due. And your silence is the moment it gets paid. So when you walk away with no bitterness, when you detach with grace and certainty, you don't just make her miss you. You force her to confront the very feelings she thought she buried. You came here wondering why silence has power. Now you understand. It's not about silence. It's about what your absence forces her to feel. You've walked through the quiet storms. You've seen how ignoring her isn't passive. It's intentional. It's a shift in energy, a reclaiming of power that most men never reach because they fear what will happen if they stop proving themselves. But you're not like most men. Now you see the difference between attention and value. You see how a man who steps back doesn't lose her. He makes her realize what she had. You've learned that silence isn't weakness. It's the final test. It's the moment when her emotional mask falls off and her truth shows itself. Because women don't chase noise. They chase the mystery that lives in the space you leave behind. They chase the self-control, the emotional discipline, the quiet confidence of a man who needs no reaction to prove his worth. This is the path of the rare man, the man who doesn't beg to be understood, the man who doesn't speak to be heard, but only when his words carry weight. A man whose attention is sacred because it's not thrown to anyone who demands it, but offered to those who earn it. And now, that's you. You've stepped into a higher level of masculine power. Not loud, not aggressive, but calm, composed, untouchable. You've learned how distance creates desire, how silence reveals truth, how the man who can walk away becomes the man she remembers. So keep evolving, keep sharpening your discipline, keep mastering the silence, not to punish, but to protect your peace. Because when a man truly understands the power of restraint, he becomes unforgettable. When a man learns to value his silence more than her attention, that's the moment he becomes dangerous. And you're not just learning this, you're living it now.